Hello and welcome to part 1 of my Minecraft blocks in Blender series. So for the first block we're obviously going to be doing a stone block because that's probably probably the second most iconic block. First is obviously the grass block. But yeah, so let's just get started. So first you want to select the default cube, just clicking on it, and then press X, delete it, and then Shift A, and then go to mesh and then cube. If you ever are curious about what I was doing, you can just check here and that's what it'll say, like what shortcuts and all I'm doing. So now that you have that, go into the material properties and then add a new material. Now what you want to do is press tab, or you can change to edit mode this way. Make sure you have all the faces selected. If you don't, you can just press A, and then that'll make sure that, like, if you clicked off, you'll just have all of them selected. And if you press U and then do cube projection, what that'll do is, right now this is in a T-pose like format, so if you put an image here it would zoom it in a lot. So if you were to if you changed this to the cube projection, that'll just make all of the faces look the same, which is what we want for this one. So now you're just going to go into shading and find the file for the stone block, and that's going to be over there. I'll have it linked in the description. And then connect this color to the base color. Now do Shift A and add a displacement node, and then do Shift A again and add a noise texture. Now what this noise texture does is it basically just adds a texture of noise. Okay, and what that does is it just makes it really random. So if I was to plug this into the height and then this into the displacement, it'll start looking like that. But if I just put the color in instead, you'll see that it looks like aluminum foil, but you have to change the scale for that. So the scale is going to be around 1.4. I would say either go from a 1.2 to a 1.8. That's the best number. Other than that, it just starts looking ugly. And bump the detail all the way up to 16. I would change to rendered view just to see how it looks, because this already looks a little bit too, like, detailed. So I might put the scale down a little. Like, that's a little bit better. Because if you go like really high, this just looks really unrealistic. So I would do 1.2. Now what you might have noticed is if I didn't have the displacement, it's really blurry. So to fix that, you can go to closest, and now you see it looks like a normal block. But we don't want this, because if you change it to smart, you can see that the colors are like really well blended. And that's good because if you put this to closest and then put the displacement in, it looks like you just slapped a stone texture onto the stone, a stone like roughness onto the stone texture from Minecraft. So that doesn't look that good, but if you change this to smart, that's a really smart decision, because it gets blended properly, and that's what we want. So now, another thing which you can do is, if you look at it from here, you can see that there's way too much glare, and that's not really a property of stone, always. So you can just bump the roughness up. Some people think that you can just put the specular down, but that does mess with a few other properties, so I would keep the specular at a 0.5. And just maybe bump the roughness up to like a 0.85, like somewhere around that. Now what you want to do is, this isn't too taxing on the PC, so you can just keep it in rendered mode just to see what it looks like. You can change to edit mode and then right click with all the faces selected, and if you don't, just press A and right click and then subdivide. And if for some reason so this is the menu for subdivision. but if you accidentally click it off, you'll see that it's gone. You can just press F9 to get it back. Now the number of cuts we want to do is 15 because a Minecraft block texture is 16 by 16. Well, they usually are. So that means 15 cuts would make 16 segments, basically. It's like that. So now what you want to do is go to select, random, and that doesn't do anything. But if you make the percentage around 20% and then make the action deselect, what you'll see is that that obviously didn't deselect 20%. That's more like 50 or 60. So I don't know why this happens, but if it's working normally for you, I would just use that, and if not, I would put in 7. 7's a pretty good number for that. And this is a pretty good seed. So now what you can do is just press Alt E and extrude individual faces 0.03, and that's how much it'll extrude it by. Now just do select, random again, and then you have 7%, and then just do Alt E, extrude individual faces 0.02. And I would just do this a few more times. Select random. Maybe this time bump it up to like a 15%. Alt E, extrude individual faces 0.02. Select random. Maybe make this a 20 this time. Alt E, extrude individual faces 0.02. And if this is, and if it was working properly, like if the 20% was actually a 20%, I would just make it like a 20, maybe a 25, then a 30, then a 40 or something like that. And let's just do this one more time. Select random, and this time let's just do 25. And then Alt E, extrude individual faces 0.0. Wait, what? Okay, now that I got whatever that was solved, I'll just go back to object mode, and you can see that it looks pretty random, and it looks pretty cool. It looks kind of like bricks or something. And that looks pretty nice. So now the next thing you want to do is go into the world properties, and then change the color to black, just because black is dark, and go into the camera view, and I would actually suggest looking for the light. You can get the light from there, and then going to the move, and then just moving it, and also I would make it a sun. Now you can see that that doesn't look that good, because, you know, that's like if the sun went on like steroids or something. So you should turn the strength down to around 2 instead of 1000. Actually I think 2.5 might be better, and you can kind of make this a little higher or lower depending on how you like it, and try and get a good angle with good shadows. Like, that's pretty good. Okay, so now just to set up the camera, of course we're not facing the right way, so just press N and then go to the view. You won't have MC prep or screencast keys most likely. Just do lock camera to view, and then you can just rotate it like that, and then just check. And if it's like for some reason off to that side, what you can do is you can either select the camera by just getting out of it and selecting it or something, or you can just go into the camera and select this outer ring, and then just press G, and that'll let you move it. And to zoom in, you can either press Control and then the middle mouse button and like go up and down. That's when you are locked camera to view, like that. Or you can just change the focal length like that. So now to get rid of this menu, just press N. Actually, we'll need it back to turn that off. And now you can use your middle mouse button to just get out of that. And now you're almost done. All you have to do is, if you see like lines or anything in your model, then you can change the render engine to cycles, and please change the device to a GPU if you have one, just because it's better. Now, I actually prefer the Eevee shadows a little more, so I'm just going to use that. And then one last thing you can also do is change the resolution. Right now this is 1080p, and if I render it, you'll see that it's really pixely if you like zoom in on it. So you can make it either 4K or 8K. So to make it 4K, you just change these values to 3840 and 1080. Sorry, not 1080. 2160. And that, trust me, that didn't mess with the camera at all. It's the same. And now if I render image, it'll take like 4 times as long, but it'll just look much better. Like, you can see that it improved. And if you do 7680 and 4320, that's 8K. And now if I do render image,
12 seconds later.
okay, so now that my PC is done imitating a jet engine, you'll see that this is much more detailed, but it is a pretty big file. So I wouldn't suggest, especially if you're animating it, this is like 30 megabytes per picture. So yeah, I mean, you could go 16K, but that's just kind of weird. Like, I don't know what you would be using that picture for. But yeah, that's really it. Bye, I guess.